86%. Let that number sink in for just a second. By the year 2025, a staggering 86% of educational organizations had adopted generative AI. That is literally the highest adoption rate of any industry on the planet. So we're not talking about some slow, incremental shift or a distant, maybe someday possibility anymore. We are smack in the middle of a massive, systemic change in exactly how we teach, learn, and operate on a daily basis. Welcome to today's Explainer. I am super excited to dive into this one with you. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating academic forecast by researchers Georges and Elie Maalouf. It's called Transforming Tertiary Education in 2026, Navigating Disruption, Deepening Innovation, and Redefining Inclusivity. We're going to look at the hard data and the real-world case studies that are defining higher education right now. Basically, we're figuring out how institutions are not just surviving, but actually thriving during this period of totally unprecedented global disruption.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. Today we're going to cover 5 key areas: disruption in higher education, the artificial intelligence revolution, redefining equity and inclusion, universities as climate leaders, and finally, the well-being crisis.
Starting us off with Pillar 1, disruption in higher education. What the research makes immediately clear is that intense external pressures are no longer just future goals for leadership to think about. They are permanent, daily realities. Take the financial squeeze of 2026, for example. Moody's Ratings projects that institutional costs are climbing by 4.4%, while revenue growth is lagging behind at just 3.5%. And compounding that is some pretty sweeping federal legislation, specifically the July 2026 rollout of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBBA. This act straight up eliminates Grad Plus loans and introduces strict caps on what learners can borrow. Throw in a steady decline in international enrollment, and you've got a seriously complex financial landscape. These pressures are basically forcing institutions to aggressively diversify where their money comes from. Think micro-credentials and employer partnerships. And they now have to demonstrate a crystal clear, data-backed return on investment to any prospective student. Moving right along to Pillar 2, the artificial intelligence revolution. Like we established right out of the gate with that 86% adoption rate, AI has entirely crossed the line from a fun novelty to an absolute daily necessity on college campuses. But as you'd expect, massive adoption brings some very valid fears. Look at this. 59% of educators cite data security as a primary concern, and a whopping 78% are worried about academic integrity. On top of that, a June 2025 health advisory from the American Psychological Association put out a stark warning. They found that prioritizing the speed of AI tools over actual human well-being is heavily exacerbating student anxiety. It's a really powerful reminder that just throwing tech at a problem without thinking it through carries a heavy psychological cost. And this brilliantly illustrates the way out of that trap. Successful institutions aren't using AI to replace their educators. Instead, they're using it to build what they call hybrid spaces. By letting technological automation handle the routine, the administrative, the totally mundane tasks, educators get their most precious resource back: time. Time that can be redirected entirely into deepening one-on-one human connection, mentorship, and advocacy. Basically, AI handles the processing so the humans can handle the connecting. Next up, Pillar 3, redefining equity and inclusion. The years 2025 and 2026 brought a wildly complex sociopolitical landscape to university equity programs, really testing how resilient these schools could be. To grasp the sheer scale of this disruption, we have to look at the data coming out of recent federal policy shifts. Following the Trump administration's 2025 executive order that eliminated federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, the research tracked some very measurable impacts on campus environments. Institutions that had to scale back these initiatives under the threat of losing funding saw a noticeable drop in student belonging, especially among marginalized groups. And, strikingly, 74% of affected faculty reported experiencing negative mental health impacts because of these sudden transitions. So, how exactly are resilient institutions adapting to this new reality? Well, first, they're leaning hard into universal design to make sure their curricula are accessible and flexible for absolutely everyone. They're also maintaining diverse hiring practices for inclusive recruitment. But the really big one, the one the researchers highlight the most, is a focus on hyper-personalization. This means offering individualized coaching and truly holistic support tailored specifically to adult learners, first-generation students, and international learners. It's a strategic way to ensure equity is kept alive in everyday practice, even if the traditional programmatic language around it has to change. And the results of this hyper-personalized approach, they totally speak for themselves. 5 times.
by using these personalized equity and coaching strategies to help students jump over complex hurdles, like sudden financial aid holds or severe academic burnout. Salt Lake Community College saw a re-enrollment rate that was 5 times the national average. I mean, wow. It proves that treating students as unique individuals isn't just the right thing to do ethically, it's a critical strategy for institutional survival.
That brings us to Pillar 4, universities as climate leaders. Beyond the digital and social shifts we've talked about, global higher ed is aggressively embracing the absolute necessity of environmental sustainability. They know they have to model the change they want to see. But true campus decarbonization isn't just about sticking a new recycling bin in the student union. It takes a holistic 3-step approach. Step 1 is curriculum design, literally mapping sustainability concepts across all academic disciplines. Step 2 is campus operations, which means getting rigorous environmental certifications and actually reducing that carbon footprint. And Step 3 is community partnerships, extending that green impact way beyond the edge of the campus. We are seeing incredible, real-world evidence of this happening on a massive global scale. For instance, the 2025 Times Higher Education Impact Rankings assessed over 1,089 to be exact, universities worldwide just on their climate action progress alone. You've got Stanford finalizing comprehensive climate action plans right now. Over at Columbia University, starting in the fall of 2025, they actually made sustainability coursework mandatory. And looking internationally, Kuwait established a brand new Ministry of Sustainability and Development in February 2026. These aren't just PR stunts. They are systematic initiatives designed to bake sustainability into the culture, so graduates carry those green values straight into the workforce. And finally, Pillar 5, the well-being crisis.
Look, behind all the flashy technological advancements and these strategic milestones, there is a very real, very human challenge we have to address. In 2026, the mental toll on campus populations is at a critical breaking point. The severity of the student crisis is honestly alarming. The research shows that a staggering 49% of learners report considering stopping out, which means pausing their education entirely due to emotional stress. And of those students, 41% specifically point to mental health as the primary reason. We have to realize that academic success is fundamentally inseparable from mental well-being. If a student is struggling psychologically, keeping them enrolled and getting them to graduation is nearly impossible.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this crisis is not just limited to the students. The educators are equally burned out. They are wrestling with the long-term aftermath of the pandemic on top of these immense new technological pressures. Just look at these resource constraints. 63% of Ivy League and private R1 institutions have implemented hiring freezes. Meanwhile, median merit pools for faculty have shrunk down to a tiny 3%. So the very people we are asking to guide students through this insanely complex era are operating under immense systemic strain themselves. To fight this dual crisis, the leading institutions are rolling out some highly actionable, holistic wellness interventions. We're way past just offering a single campus counselor. Today, they are using proactive coaching to spot the early warning signs of distress before things get bad. They are launching emergency microgrant programs, which is brilliant because it immediately resolves a sudden financial crisis before it can trigger an emotional spiral. They're integrating their wellness services directly with local community partners. And they're setting up digital well-being initiatives to help everyone develop healthier habits with all this new tech. It's basically a comprehensive safety net designed to build true, lasting resilience. All of this data leads us straight to the core thesis of the Maloof's research. I actually want to read this powerful conclusion from this source paper to you verbatim because it hits the nail on the head. Today's reality demands institutions that are not only innovative but profoundly human-centered, healing in a fractured world. Despite the sweeping AI advancements and the really harsh fiscal pressures we talked about, the absolute most critical component of a successful education in 2026 is human connection. Which leaves us with this final, somewhat provocative question to chew on. As we navigate all of this unprecedented technological disruption, is the future of education artificial or is it profoundly human? The data clearly suggests that the institutions coming out on top are the ones using technology to enable our shared humanity, rather than trying to replace it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and take a moment to think about how these 2026 shifts might be playing out in your own educational community right now. See you next time.